I'd like to call the Danville Board of Education meeting to order for May 21st, 2018, and it's 6:01 p.m. Our first order of business is to approve the meeting agenda.
I move that we approve the meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is board member comments. I'd like to start by saying our chairperson, Paige Matthews, is not here. Therefore, I'm presiding over the meeting. She had an accident this afternoon and was not able to be here. And I'd also like to say a few more words that we've had lots of great things going on, including the school musical. Little Shop of Horrors was awesome. We have lots of talented students in the high school, and that was very impressive. And I'd like to say also that we had a wonderful choral program as well as a band program, not to mention track, all of that. So we've got lots of things going on in our system that we can be very proud of.
And along with that, I was just downstairs at the awards night, and it was packed. Lots of kids, lots of awards being given out. I'm part of an organization that does do scholarships, and it makes me proud to be a part of it, and also to be able to give to our Danville kids.
All right, next is superintendent comments.
So as mentioned, our boys high school track team took home state championship for 1A. It's the first time that's happened, I think, Ms. McCown, since you were running.
Yep.
So we'll be able to reflect that. That's right, and I think you were good about running the clock to make sure that your records were never touched, even though so it allows you to be.
Man, Cleveland was good, man.
That's
Didn't
right.
beat me.
Well supported. Well supported. So cool when you can pull home 2 state championships in the same year. We have tonight as well, there is a forensic spotlight before our students head off to national competition at the high school level. And then tomorrow and Wednesday are our elementary and middle school gateways. This is when our 5th and 8th graders do their authentic exhibitions of learning, where they'll be in front of a real audience talking about who they are, their capacities that have been built on the Danville schools, and where they are heading, whether it's moving to middle school or moving to high school and beyond. If you've not had the opportunity to observe or participate in these, there are still opportunities. Mr. Cornett, raise your hand if you would. If you're interested in come check it out, please let him know and he'll give you all the details. We'll be at Center College both days to host it at Young Hall, beginning at 8 o'clock and running until about 3. It's a pretty cool thing, and if you've not had a chance to check it out, if your student has not yet been able to participate, we'd love to invite you out to do so. Over the weekend, we were able to honor, through Campbellsville, some Excellence in Teaching Awards. Mr. Otto was the award recipient at the high school, Mr. Carney at the middle, and Ms. Gover at the elementary levels. And also I want to take a moment to recognize Mr. Leo Labriazo. The National Association of Elementary School Principals has noted him as the National Distinguished Principal from Kentucky. So he'll be representing the Danville schools in the state of Kentucky as the National Principal of the Year. We're excited to have that happen as well.
Thank you. Next is our retiree recognition.
Mr. Bowers, would you like to go first?
I would like to go first. So, Jerry Weldon, come on up. Jerry joined the Tolliver staff about 3 years ago. I think Jerry's worked in every building at one point during your tenure. So the Tolliver finished his being able to be in each building. One of the things I asked Jerry to do when he came to Tolliver was make sure he loved kids, and he's done that, and he has shown that time and time again. We've absolutely enjoyed his great nature, his kind heart, and his willingness to share Hardee's biscuits and Cindy's cupcakes from time to time. And we wish you the best in your retirement.
Hang on, you do it there by the crowd. Hold on, Jerry. There's a big moment in something. We got to use lots of things. Wait for the guy in the suit.
Rare happening.
That's right.
retiree is Susan Donlin. Now, I've been teasing her that I was going to give her some tears, but I actually wrote these down so that I would shed some tears, kind of keep me from shedding tears. I've worked with Susan the entire time I've been at Toller for the last 17 years. If you know anything about Susan, she puts on the best book fairs. And another one that's going to put weight on you here those weeks too. Truly gets students excited about reading. From a personal standpoint, I personally blame her for having to tell my second grade son, get outside, put the book down. Absolutely, and still is a huge reader to this day. And he brings it back to Mrs. Donovan from that second grade group she had with him. She has built a library that is current and absolutely relevant to the students and what their interests are. And without a doubt, the biggest testimony to her, and one that I hope that I can uphold, is a true professional to the last day. You would not know this was her last year. She has run that library with the same vigor as she did probably her first year. For that, I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I know. Okay.
Careful there, lady.
Okay.
This is yes.
Sure that was good? All right, thank you, I appreciate it. A lot of your children never got to have your job.
We'll find you. We know where you are.
Thank you, thank you. And it's rude to leave, but
We have a retirement day.
in Stanford, so love you, thank you.
Tonight, I would like to recognize Miss Dana Hager. Dana actually retired in December, and so she left us midway through this year. She's been an educator for 27 years, and she spent the last 12 of those years here in Danville with us. She came to Jenny Rogers as a primary teacher, and then she moved over here to Danville High School and was a striving readers coach for 5 years, and then she returned to Jenny Rogers. So it's been a pleasure to have her in my building. I was also a parent in her class. She had my own child, and she is off sailing the Caribbean and enjoying her retirement. So we will recognize her not being here tonight, but I still wanted to say her.
I have two to recognize. First is Mr. Cornett. Wes Cornett came and joined our district this year. It took a lot of recruiting, a number of multi-year effort, some embarrassing Christmas caroling, and anything else to make sure we get the best talent in Danville schools. We pulled him from Somerset schools after a long career as a school administrator. He's touched a lot of kids and continues to do so. In fact, it's still, most of his former students are probably the best testament to the kind of character that he is and the man that he is, as far as when you see the number of students who still look for Mr. Cornett to provide tutelage, guidance, and general overall insight and mentoring. That is something that will continue for forever. While he's been with the Danville schools in particular, we are tonight discussing a very important adjustment to our salary schedule to support teachers in their national board certifications and dual credit work. We had a beautiful evening the other night for our English language learners, and even begun the year looking at everything from our gateway work and lots of other instructional things to again build teacher leadership throughout the district. So for that, Mr. Cornett, I appreciate you greatly. Enjoy the time away.
Just a little bit. 1, 2, 3.
I now get to recognize Teresa Good, which is kind of tricky for both of us. So my guess is probably the thing that you probably hate the most, and probably the part I enjoy the most, but also understand that that's a tough part of it. There are certain people in every organization that represent your barometer. They're the ones you look to figure out Emotions, attitudes, positivity, negativity, confusion, chaos, and solutions. And Teresa is that barometer. Those of you that probably know her many more years than I do, I think would attest to the same. There's a level of stability and consistency in simple issues of judgment that represent true professionals. And there is not a day in your entire career where you did anything less than that consummate professional and made sure that all of us were functioning, surviving, and making the best decisions possible. It's people like that, truly you can't replace. They just don't exist in that same sort of way. So we have decided to rescind her retirement, which is an empty box, and we like to punish you by doing it. But no, Teresa, thank you very much. It's been wonderful. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Can I interrupt? Sure. I'd like to recognize Ms. Robin Kelly. If you'll come up, please.
I'm not retiring.
You didn't know? She doesn't know. Actually, Saturday night, generally I like to go out, have a really festive event, do something that's very special. And this lady, along with many other folks involved at Jenny Rogers School, gave a fantastic send-off. 65 years of absolutely pure, wonderful education has taken place in that building. And of course, we're transitioning into a new way. But I just want to thank you and Gail Wright and everybody who was involved. It was an evening to remember, and I learned so much. I never knew that there were so many true stories about Jenny Rogers, and especially about your brother in the bench. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Gail. Come here. Gail's been involved with the Danville schools for about, what, 34 years?
31.
31, and you were 22?
24.
24. Also at Jenny Rogers.
And I did her teacher internship.
Worked out well.
So anyways, it's a great close family that extends to all of our 1,850 kids and that many more parents, but thank you all very much. It was memorable, and what a send-off. Great job.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have the minutes of the previous meeting. We have a motion.
I make a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes from April 16th, April 23rd, and April 26th,
Second.
2018.
And second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have the summer elementary transition plan.
We just wanted to take some time to give you a brief update of what's going to be going on and what has gone on in the last few months. Typically this time of year, everybody's worried about closing out school, and that's still the case, but this year we have some added, we'll say, anxiety, especially for our elementary staff and our district staff. But we're just here to say that we do have a plan. Everything's going to be okay, and we will get everything accomplished. We're not going to read the entire plan. It is rather detailed, and there's a few things that we've left out. And just kind of wanted to share with you a few of the things that we've been working on. The past couple months, we've started doing a lot of stuff on, I'm going to speak toward technology mainly, and Chrissy's going to talk a little bit about furniture and stuff like that. On the network side, you wouldn't think it's a big deal to do something like this, but it is. For just one example, a couple days ago, the technology department, we spent about 2 hours just redoing phone extensions. And you wouldn't think that, but with New Tolliver, we want the extension to match the room number, and there are different things like that that we have to address. And there's others that you can read. I'm not going to read them all to you. One of the big things we want you to know is come June 4th, we're going to be moving all of the office staff, the summer staff, to their new homes. So from that point on, the Hogsett on Waveland will cease to exist as far as calling and getting a hold of people and things like that. We're going to transfer the Hogsett phone number to the Jenny Rogers building. So the Hogsett phone number will remain the same. And then we'll get a list out of the principal, assistant principal, administrative assistants, and people that will be working in the summer of their extensions, so that if anybody needs to get a hold of them, they can. And that's June 4th. After that, you can see we're going to start some of the heavy moving of the technology equipment. We've got to basically clean out the entire Hogsett building. You can see specific things on there, switches, access points, things like that. Those we will reuse at the new Hogsett building once it opens up, so those will sit at the high school for a year or so. Some of the security cameras and projectors and things like that we'll use next year as kind of spares, or replace some of the older equipment we had in the current Jenny Rogers building. And then our goal, technology-wise and furniture-wise, is to have everybody in by July 16th. So teachers will be able to come at that date and get their new keys or ID cards and start working in their rooms. We're going to start moving boxes this week. Our teachers have done an excellent job the past few weeks of packing everything, and if you walk in certain classrooms, the whole corner of the room is stacked with boxes, and we're going to be starting at the end of this week getting some of those things moved. And then next week will be the big crunch time for teachers as far as them packing everything up. And we're going to kind of get all the mobile devices next week and kind of inventory those and different things like that. Trying to see if there's anything big I've left out. We are going to have some major changes at the high school. The one-to-one, and so we've allowed ourselves time those last couple of weeks of July. Hopefully we'll have the majority of the elementary finished, but if we don't, we'll still have enough time in a month's time to prepare for the one-to-one, because we're going to be moving some computer labs around, taking some out, building a wall or two in a classroom. So we haven't forgotten about the other buildings. It's just our first focus in June is going to be the elementary. So I'll let you at the end, if that's okay, and you can ask any questions about technology or the overall plan, and I'll let Christy hit some furniture items.
You'll notice the document's divided by category with groups, so there's a staff group and some of the things that they're supposed to be doing, and then the technology staff, and then we have a section for maintenance staff and custodial staff. It will be a musical chair type month for 6 weeks this summer. It will be really concise and scheduled pretty tightly so that we can make sure we don't ignore our other buildings. We've got to have time to take care of the whole district as opposed to just our transition. But you'll notice if you look at the week of May 21st, which is this week, it's fairly light. We can start moving some boxes, and we're going to start that on Wednesday. We're going to move Anna Houston, her office, to Tolliver, and we're going to be able to move a preschool from Children's Place. All of that stuff will come back and put that in storage until we get the Jenny Rogers building ready. But when you turn to May 28th this week, we'll try and not go on vacation this week. I hear things calling me, but this is going to be a crazy week where we're going to be moving boxes of teacher materials, staff materials, school records, student records, offices, as well as some furniture from one school to another school, or even within one school building. Hogsett has some furniture that we will be using at Jenny Rogers. A number of the tables, the student tables that they sit at, and some of the teacher desks, just some things like that. Hogsett also has things in it that we may use once the building is finished, so we have to get those things and put that in storage. there's some things that hogs it that will need to surplus. Just, we've had it for a long time. So that's just hogs it. With Jenny Rogers, there's some furniture there that we will keep and use. There's some that needs to be discarded. There's some that we could possibly sell at a surplus auction. So all of those things are actually slated. I don't have that plan attached to this one yet. Each door at Jenny Rogers, each classroom door will have a list on it that shows what needs to go in that room. The furniture, equipment, teacher storage things will be staged in the gym or the cafeteria. Will also be labeled with what room that it needs to go into. We'll have some contracted moving crew help for about 6 or 7 days within these 2 weeks through Isaiah House, and so they'll help us move things. At the same time, as the maintenance and moving crew are playing musical schools, even within Tolliver, we're going to have to move some furniture around because presently we have kindergarten and first grade on the 3rd floor. Second graders will be on the 1st floor. So the desks that are set for that age level need to be moved from the 3rd floor to the 1st floor. The 14-inch chairs won't work at Tolliver at all. We need to take those to Jenny Rogers. So we've got to store those in a certain place in the cafeteria or the center hall. That's where I've got that. Everything's got a place to go. And everyone will have a list, and there will be lists on each door and at various places within all 3 school buildings, so they can refer to it at any time. I want it to flow quickly and smoothly with very little question as to what am I supposed to be doing. While that's going on, even just the kitchen part on the week of May 28th is specific as to what pieces of equipment go where. Some we'll be able to keep, some will surplus, some it's going to be relocated in different parts of the district. At the same time, our custodians will probably experience a little bit of a different this summer. And I haven't talked to them about it. There's a couple of them in here, right? Swear to secrecy if you're still in here. I'm going to meet with them Tuesday after we have our district end of year celebration. But we're gonna have to do custodial teams this year. So the custodial staff will start at Jenny Rogers, and there will be a team that's a moving crew. There will be a team that is cleaning crew. There will be a team that is the flooring crew, and then at the same time, I'll have teams at Tolliver doing the same thing. So we'll be able to do 2 schools at a time. Those teams will be able to shift to the other buildings and help out as needed. And so we'll be able to make sure we get all of our custodial tasks, duties done at every building and not shortchange anybody. So if you have any questions about this plan, it's still kind of, it's still a bit drafty after, May 20th to June is still a tad drafty. We'll have to see how it works. We may have to adjust times, but I hope not.
It's a lot of work. It's a puzzle, I do this. It's a puzzle. Yeah, and it's kind of fun that way, but it's also.
And everybody that I talked to about it brings a whole new dimension to it. The kitchen equipment wasn't in there until this afternoon. We met with Patty. I was with the maintenance guys. We called Patty in and I get my pencil out and take a lot of notes. It was like, oh yeah. So, took care of that.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to help in the summer, just let us know.
I have you on Teams already. Did you?
Okay, that's fine.
I'll do it.
That's fine. No, thank you all.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
Next on our agenda are the reports. We're going to start with the staffing report.
You'll see that you've got 4 attachments, and if you remember from the work session, we talked about Mr. Dean sent the allocations out to the school. So you've got one for Bates, one for the high school, one for district-wide folks, and one for operations. When you click on that, there's tabs down at the bottom. One of them says projection. That tells you what Mr. Dean sent them. Then you'll see one for certified staff and one for classified staff. Those are the positions they're requesting. So all I need from you tonight is just approval for those.
Is there a motion? Discuss after that.
I move that we approve of the secondary and district-wide positions as submitted. Second.
Any discussion or questions for Teresa?
Teresa, how likely is this gonna change?
Probably.
Okay. Not drastically.
Not drastically. Most of them are pretty well set, same as last year.
All those in favor of the motion, second?
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes. Next is our finance report. Mr. Dean?
You should have excuse me, a copy attached to the agenda of the April 2018 financial statement. Page 1 is a breakdown of the cash balances. You'll notice that at the beginning of April, we had a balance of $8,643,850. Total receipts for the month of April were $1.7 million. Claims or accounts payable for the month were $749,556. Total payroll expenditures were $1,325,660. So total expenditures of $2.074 million left us with a balance at the end of April of $8,269,824.46. The middle section, you can see the bank balance minus the outstanding checks agrees with the same bank balance. And then down at the bottom is a breakdown by the various funds that we maintain. You'll see the general fund balance at the end of April was $5,909,851, which is a little bit more than a little bit better than we were last year at this time. Some of the other balances, as we go down, you'll see the assigned maintenance is down from what it was as we've expended a lot of those for the various projects that were approved. Just under $400,000 left in that. And you can see the remaining balances, building fund, $447,000, construction fund, which is down a lot from the previous year since we're close to finishing out the Tolliver project now. So total of the funds is the same, $8,269,824.46. Second page is a breakdown of our certificate of deposit for the Tolliver construction project. You'll see for April, we had $371,539, and then I've also got May draw on there where we had to pay out $420,907. So as of right now, through May, we're sitting with a CD balance remaining of $580,622. Interest earned for the month of April was $795. So for the life of the certificate of deposit, we've earned a total of $112,966. Page 3 consists of a summary of the receipts for the month of April. You can look in the beginning column, the receipts for the month are outlined there. We did get, so far for April, May, and June, we've gotten a bump in SEEK because of our ADA. So you can see the total SEEK receipt for the month was $617,720, which is a little bit above what we've been getting. I think it was a little over $585,000 the previous month. So ADA helped get us a bump there. So total for the month, $947,532. Then the second column, you can see where we stand year to date. General property taxes were just a little bit under $6.5 million. We continue to collect those. PSC property taxes are beyond what we had estimated budgeted through the month of April at $501,000. And you can see where the other receipts stand during the year as compared to the budget, a total of $18,314,000. And then in the next to the last column, you can see if you can compare as to where we were last year. The last page of that report is the same thing, only for the expenditure side. In the first month, you'll see what was paid out for the month of April, and then the year-to-date column, and then we have a budget column so you can kind of compare, and then the last year to date column to see how we stack up from this year to last year. And down at the bottom, breakdown of our general fund cash, $6,509,000. Back out the sick leave escrow of $200,000, and then the assigned maintenance, as we said, just under $400,000, left us with a general fund available balance of $5,909,851.33.
Second.
Any discussion? I know we had quite a bit of discussion during our work session. If we've seen no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the finance report related to payment of invoices.
As we discussed during the work session, the total claims for the month of April that were paid were $749,556.62. Of that balance, we paid out in the month $371,539 for the construction and renovation project at Tolliver. We had debt service during the month of $13,810, which left us $364,208, which were expended towards construction, supplies, repairs and maintenance, utilities, food service, diesel fuel, other obligations that we had to operate the school district. And of that amount, just to break down a few things we had talked about were two of the assigned fund items. The Gravely Hall LED lighting at a cost of $28,500. The swing gym window replacement of $15,844. And we also purchased a district server for $10,800 and did a little bit of work at Tolliver on the access door system, $2,865. And then in line with replacing the upper gym bleachers in the high school, we also did some painting the gym walls, total cost of $5,200. And then we also purchased math kindergarten through 5 curriculum for the district of $59,154. So those are kind of the highlights for the month of April.
Paul, do you foresee any big expenditures coming before we finish out the year?
Just normal expenditures. You know, we're going to purchase a bus. Other than that, I can't say. But in May, we had already purchased a maintenance vehicle that will be paid for in May, and then we have one final bond payment in an amount of about $150,000 that will come out in May. We'll be finished with those.
This is kind of a little bit on subject, but a little bit off. Is the interior construction at Tolliver completely done? So now they're just working outside? I just was wondering, like, financially, whether that part's done, if we're just.
Well, now the outside.
We already, yeah.
Yeah, we've already put the $400,000 in for that, so they should take care of it.
I think as far as the interior, I mean, unless they have some items left on their punch list, I think they're pretty much done.
Yeah, we probably are due one more payout. Now, how much that's going to be, I'm not sure, but we'll have one more.
Over the past several months, I've noticed lots in attorney fees. Do you know how much of that, can you attribute what all of that has gone to for clarification on the bulk of it?
Well, for the last 4 months, billings for April, March, basically the last 3 months, we've had a significant amount that have gone towards work that the attorneys have done regarding the open records request and matters related to that. I didn't bring that specific amount with me tonight. I sent that to you all, but I know that one of our bills was a little over $19,000 for the month of March. And so I'm thinking for the 3 months, we were looking at about $30,000 in expenses.
I make a motion for the approval of payment invoices totaling $749,556.62 as presented.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Ms. Everett,
Oh, next is the tentative budget.
not done.
You should have a copy attached to the agenda. It was not done until late this afternoon, so I went ahead and just printed out the summary so we could go through on the tentative budget.
This is pages.
So what I want to do is go through all of the financial highlights of the tentative budget. I do not have a copy of the Munis report ready to give to you yet, basically because all of the new accounts that have to be created with the new schools, we've got a new school code assigned to Hogs and a new school code assigned to Tolliver, so I have to go out back and recreate all the orgs and objects, not only for the general fund, but for the district activity funds, for the Fund 2. So I'm still working to get that done before the end of the month so that I can print get the Munis report all finished up, and I'll get a copy to you as soon as I can. But what I want to do is go through the highlights for the 18-19 budget. Now, as you know, this is the second step in the 3-cycle process of a budget. Obviously, the first was the draft budget, which we reviewed in January, where basically all we had was revenues. But now we've got a little farther along with our staffing and some of the expenditures in place so that we can go with a tentative budget. And then finally in September, we'll finish it up by doing the working budget, and we'll have a better idea of all the expenses and revenues involved, tax rates, all that kind of stuff. So just to get started, you can see the general fund budget is $18,762,545. That's without the on behalf payments. And you'll see on that top line, on behalf payments, which have to be recognized in the budget, are $3,765,054. So this brings the total general fund to $22,527,599. Now we'll go down through there and look at the rest of the items. The Fund 2 is basically an estimate at this point. We do have some state figures in hand, but a lot of the federal amounts are still out there to be determined, so it's kind of estimating right now. And we'll go through that here in just a second, and I'll show you what we've got and what we're looking at. District activity funds running about $210,000 for the year. That's what we're budgeting. And we went through capital outlay and building fund at the working session, and those numbers are the same as what we had discussed at the working session. Food service at $1,513,475. Now, the total that we're looking at is $29,128,029. That's a little bit more than what we had last year, not as much in the general fund, but some of the other items have bumped a little bit. Like I said, Fund 2 is up probably about $300,000 more than what we had done in the tentative budget last year, basically because of our Striving Readers Grant. We'll talk about that here in a minute. That's going to be for 18-19, $290,000. So got a bump out of that. And then also the building fund, where it's a little more last year, probably about $300,000 or $400,000 more, basically because of the equalization of the recallable nickel that we got. It was fully equalized rather than just 25% as in previous year. So a few things there and a couple of those are up a little bit, but if you take into account the $29 million, you're looking at 2% mandated contingency of $582,561, and projecting right now, probably looking at a contingency for next year of 6.9% or $1,782,000. Now, if we go on through the rest of it, first of all, I'd just like to hit some of the things on the general fund. You can look at some of the impact items there. Obviously, we did get a little bit of bump in SEEK going from $39.81 to $4,000 per ADA. Represented a bump at $1,668 ADA, which is on our SEEK forecast of about $140,000. Looking at a possible revenue increase of $185,000. That's based on taking a 4% increase if we so desire to do that. And then go down through the list are some of the items. You know, we have recurring items such as salary and step increases every year. Last year we had the 1% raise, so that's going to be recurring. And then just wanted to point out that last year, fiscal year 2018, we moved from the annual carry forward amounts into the recurring cost budget, $325,000 for certain items that we put in there. Now, this next section, I just wanted to point this out to you. This doesn't mean that all of that is additional cost, because a lot of that was neutral changes as far as the cost when we did this. But I just wanted you to see, I put this in there so that you could see beyond the allocations and the Section 7 amounts that we presented to each school. These were the staffing allocations that you adopted. These were the extra positions that were provided to each of the school based on their needs that you wanted to give to them. And so listed on the right side are each of those positions, and then what the actual cost projected for next year would be for those positions. Like I said, that's not adding new money to the budget. A lot of that is just neutral things that we worked out, but I just wanted you to see what that was. And then some additional impact items that are listed at the bottom. We've got the high school Chromebook initiative, new bus purchase factored in. One thing I want you to be aware of, and we'll talk about this when we get to the Fund 2, is we're looking at probably with the cut that was made to preschool, having to absorb some of that cut in the general fund. So probably looking at about $27.5. And then the CDRS rate increase from last year to this year. Obviously, the legislation helped by reducing it from to a 2.3% increase, whereas it was expected to be about 8%. So that was very helpful.
You mentioned the Danville High School, the Chromebook initiative. It may be too early to know right now, but are there going to, with the BATE Chromebook initiative, are there going to be any costs for replacement or anything based on our current equipment?
Shouldn't be any cost for BATE. I'll let Brian answer that, but shouldn't be any for this coming year.
There shouldn't be. They've budgeted about $4,000 or $5,000 for parts, and that's the biggest issue we've had, and that's to be expected in something that big. So they've kind of paid for their own parts. We took up the Chromebooks last week, got almost all of them back. Actually, we did get all of them back. We're still waiting on a few chargers these last couple of days, but we don't anticipate any major cost as far as left over.
Well, middle school's done an exceptional job with management of such a large initiative.
They have.
Well, when we talked about it before, that was part of the program, was to make sure that we can actually prepare these at our own expense versus.
Yeah, right now we've been able to repair almost everything: screens, batteries, keyboards. I think we've lost one to my knowledge, and it was stolen and hasn't been found, and that student, paid the replacement costs. So we've done really good. High school's got a big act to follow next year.
No pressure.
Can we still get some reimbursement for the bus purchase and transportation in the budget? I know that was big talk in the state budget, was about transportation. Do we still get some?
They should be funding it at the same level that they have.
It's about 58%.
Yeah, that was threatened to be cut, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And even though the reimbursement percentage is the same, the cost of the bus is going up. So overall, it is a reduction, but it's a maintained same percentage.
On the next page, you'll see just basically a breakdown of budgeted revenues for next year. Just highlighting that, you see the general property tax at $6.6 million. SEEK program, based on their forecast for next year, is $6,999,045. Various other items in there, PSC taxes, increase that based on what we've taken in so far this year, so that resulted in an increase of about 100,000. So utilities, taxes, all those items down through are things that we budget for receipts for the year, including the on behalf payments as were detailed on page 1. And then on the next page is kind of expense by classification, just kind of breaking some things out so that you can see kind of what we're spending. Total salaries and benefits, 13.6 million, and then listed down through our other items such as maintenance, transportation, board expenses, various central office departments, district technology. Breaking those out of the budget so that you can see what the total is for those particular items. Some of those have gone up a little bit, some of those have gone down some in the contingency. You can see at the bottom. And then finally, out of the general fund, you can see at the bottom of the page the debt service payments that are required to be made from the general fund, not the building fund, but the general fund that has to be transferred over. The big one there is the high school energy conservation bonds, which are paid for through energy savings that have come to the district. So right now, you can look. We're looking at transferring about $311,000 from the general fund to cover debt service for that and for the KISTA payments. We will have one KISTA payment that will be expiring in 2019, and the others in 2-year increments after that. The next page is basically for the schools. This gives you kind of a breakdown of what's been allocated to the schools that they have, so that we trace it back to those staffing schedules that Teresa had provided to you earlier. You can look across the top and see what the certified site-based staffing is for each school. Then there's a section 7, small amount allocated to them, and then in the one below that are the additional staff that we were talking about on the previous page, and you can see what each school has additional allocated to them. And then below that are the classifieds, your secretaries, your bookkeepers, custodians, all the things allocated to each school, and then special education allocations for each school. Below that, we kind of get into a little bit of money things as far as what the Section 6 allocations were for each school. We also have what's called a fee waiver student funds based on free and reduced lunch numbers that we give to the school districts for supplies. Actually, I've left one of those out in there. I'd like to fill that in. Then our budget for our athletics and our co-curricular activities. And at the bottom, what I've done is kind of break down by the school what their total salaries and fringe benefits based on these items up above are, and then the on behalf payments which will be allocated to each school, and then also the other expenses from non-salary and fringe benefit items that are given to the schools. So you can kind of go across the bottom there and you see what each school's general fund budget looks like as of right now. Now, we'll note that on Mary G. Hogsett down at the bottom, that will have 4 full-time equivalent preschool teachers and 30 hours of instructional assistants that are paid for from the state grant funds or the Cara preschool, which, like I said, we're getting cut this year, so we may have to absorb a little bit of that. All right. Next page is we're getting to Fund 2. And I wanted to give you a breakdown, basically, of what our state grants and our federal grants look like. You can see there's kind of a history there that's been maintained from 2007 up until now. If you look at this year, fiscal year 18, you'll see that our textbook or instructional resource money started out at $47,468. That's been cut during the year to $26,107. Our professional development money was started out at $25,053 and was cut to $13,178.50. So even though we're allocated this money, not a guarantee, because they come back behind us and reduce some of that based on the governor's mandate. So that's what it looked like in 18. Now, if you look down at 19, you'll see it's a little more severe there. We get nothing for textbooks. We get nothing for professional development. Actually, ESS and all the rest of them are cut just a little bit. The Safe School amount that I have in there is the same amount as last year, just because they have not given us that amount yet. That's the only one that I have not seen. All the rest of them are looking at a small reduction. Then down at the bottom, in the left-hand side, you can see our other state grants, our KECSAC, our Youth Service Center, our Family Resource Center, preschool, and gifted and talented. Now, the preschool, as I told you, last year was $420,455. That's been reduced to $395,185. All the rest of them, I think the Youth Service Center and Family Resource Center are looking good in their numbers. KECSAC, I think, is looking good, and we just got a very small reduction in the gifted and talented. On the federal side, there are a lot of them, we don't know the numbers yet. We do know the Title III amount that we've got listed there, and then the Striving Readers Grant, as I said, for 2018-19 will be $290,000.
So that, the deficit in textbooks and professional development, does that come out of general fund? Like when we need textbooks?
If we decide to do that, then we'll have to.
Could some of the Striving Readers go towards, or is that kind of?
Well, I don't know that it will cover that. The budget has not been totally established for that project yet. We'll be working on that to see, but they've got a certain matrix that they have to follow as far as what you can spend for, so we'll see about that.
Each one of those title accounts has a different set of rules.
Yeah.
Some of them can be spent on textbooks, some can be spent on ancillary materials, some for supplementary materials, some only for certain disciplines and so forth. So while there is, general fund can be used, we first will consider our grant money to make sure we maximize those dollars first.
So it looks like we'll be coming up with around 47.5 left.
If we want to provide the same level of textbook money and professional development, I would think that we'll probably do some, but not to that extent. That's
More
something
and more
we'll
our
have to work
curriculum's been
on.
I was
online.
gonna say, are we moving, yeah, it's because.
More and more that's been the case, which allows other books to last a little longer or read other packages to extend a little further. So technically, it still falls within textbook purchasing at times, but part of the reason why those cuts are there, we obviously could use every penny we could get, but luckily there's new flexibility coming by moving one-to-one.
What is the cost, I was just curious, of like doing like an online textbook? Is it a subscription-based type thing versus like buying like a hardcover $80 textbook? I mean.
Right now, the textbook companies try and package it all together. If you buy the book, you get all the other stuff for free, or some other arrangement. David Davis is our guru when it comes to how those things are manipulated. So it depends upon which way you're doing. Some of our tier 2, tier 3 programs are more subscription-based. So there's budget line items for a lot of those, whether it's accelerated reader or that sort of thing. But for Algebra 2, it's either the books and the things that come with, or now we'll be looking more and more at online systems.
Just curious, the world's changing.
And just so you know, this year when we experienced the cuts to the textbook money and the PD money, basically the textbook money was spent before we received notice that they were going to reduce it. So a large part of that had to be absorbed by the general fund anyways. We've already had to experience that. And the final page that you have is just a breakdown, basically, of the final funds, the Fund 21, our district activity funds. Those are the monies that come from the school level to the district because of red books, so that they can be spent on things that need to be. Basically, we're budgeting $210,000, and you can see what the basic amounts. These are just average balances that the schools keep at the district level. Finally, we have capital outlay and building fund. We discussed those at the working session. You can see the amount that's available for next year. For capital outlay is $168,839. And in the building fund, how it's broken down by our nickels and our equalization. what our debt service for next year looks like as of now. Like I said, we probably will experience debt service payments after the Hogsett project and the Bay HVAC renovation project gets started. We'll start experiencing those, and so some of that $643,000 money that's available for capital projects will be absorbed by some of those debt service payments. So a lot of information to digest relevant to the 2018-19 tentative budget. Any questions? Huh?
So it's just a lot to.
Oh, it is. Like I said, if you need to look it over, if you got questions later, shoot me an email, give me a call.
So I had mentioned about possible raises for the teachers. There's nothing in here that allows for that.
Not at the current time.
Okay. I wish it would have been in there, at least we could have seen what the actual costs are.
Would it be about the same as what it was for, but it'll be a little bit more than what it was for, I guess, 130 for.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit more because we have a few more positions. Generally, it's about the same.
So would you all actually like to see that?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. And I guess you would need to know that from us by the June meeting, is that we were trying?
Well, I mean, I'll get that done as soon as possible
Yeah.
because this is, if y'all approve this, I mean, we can go ahead and, if you decide to do that, do it before June 30th so that we can make sure that our salary schedules and everything are coordinated appropriately. But I'll go ahead and make the calculation.
I think it'd be good. I would just like to see if it's possible. It may not be possible this year, so.
Can you do a couple different scenarios, like a 1% and a 2%? Just to see the difference.
I'm fine with the revenue based on the 4%.
I'll get those calculations.
I make a motion for the approval of the 2018-19 tentative budget as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Next on our agenda is facilities. We have a discussion regarding the softball field.
A whole lot more to add to that at the moment. John Carmen's been working on numbers, looking closer at what we would need for that. The first set of numbers he gave me, the first plan that we had a few years ago didn't have a press box. So we added the press box, and I kind of talked to Paul a little bit about what the numbers look like, and I think he's gonna see what we can possibly do. Probably, with a press box, he said around 440. Just still well below the number from a couple of years ago. I got a quote that was like
Now, are we still looking at taking some of the assigned funds that we're not going to be using?
If we take the $300,000 that we had originally set aside for the stadium and go ahead and use it for the softball field, then we would still have to come up with about $150,000 in general funds.
But that was a tentative number.
So maybe we look at it again in June.
Yes, I can. I'm waiting on him to have it together in June morning and have better numbers to it, but he just called me to give a little, today's Monday, Friday.
Okay.
And said he had gotten a little closer to what he thought it would be because he needed to add that press box in. He's a little unsure in terms of lights because the prices for lights have been just kind of all over the place. And that is what takes the longest, is ordering the lights and getting them installed. It's usually about a 3-month process. So if we decide to go this route, he feels like that we could start it in August. Have it ready before the season starts. That's all I know about that right now. And while I'm on the topic, the playground pictures down here, we did get the middle centerpiece as well as 2 sets of swings and the installation and the removal of the old installation of tables. So that's on order.
So-
The other pieces on the sides, we may choose to maybe try to get PTO involved or slate it for some type of purchase in a couple of years we can add to.
You said an additional set of swings?
2 sets of swings, because that was the big request. Miss Kelly requested swings, and you guys had said the kids love swings. And so
Did we add that one ADA, at least one ADA? Okay. And that included the fencing?
Because we had a lot of, about 6,000, is that right?
It's around 125,000. That's what,
And that's inclusive of mulch,
that's
side.
everything, including
everything we had
removing the
talked
old
about.
playground, which technically is not part of the new, but it's, I just lumped it together in what we have to. I think it's 125.5, Paul, I think you started that today, close to it.
And that included the screen on the.
No, that doesn't include that yet. However, is there a fence up now? Behind the basketball?
I haven't been there.
I think so. So, no. There is.
So the screening will be in addition?
Yeah, that'll probably be just a general fund type thing that they can do.
Which one is the gate open? Does it open out or in? Or the proposed gate? I just was wondering.
It'd
Check
be
on that.
in.
It's on the flash.
Sure.
It would be in.
We'll check on that. Yeah. We'll check on that for you, let you know.
Thank you. Next is Kelly on the district branding update. I think we all have a handout on that.
So the last time that I was before you all, we talked about, we found a graphic designer, a branding committee had been assembled, and we were looking at what we could do to create some logos so that with the elementary transitions, we all had things to use. And we had a consistent look throughout our district. So I just wanted to give you all an update and kind of show you the process and progress of the committee. The first step was having a branding committee assembled. We have 10 people on our branding committee, 5 which are staff members, 2 are students, and 3 are community members. You can see on your list there who those individuals are. The next thing is kind of what is their role, because you can say what, we have a branding committee, but what is their role in this whole process? And they were selected to work with a graphic designer to develop and implement a brand concept. They have been providing input, guidance throughout the entire process. They helped identify, resources and help make decisions about the brand in general. And one of the requirements as part of the being on the branding committee was to attend 3 committee meetings. And then, of course, there would be a lot of stuff in between those meetings where we would have phone calls, surveys, email correspondence. And then lastly, to be a Danville brand ambassador once we finalize the concept to help be a cheerleader for that. So, got the committee, everybody knows their responsibility. I met individually with individuals to go over that committee description. Once they agreed, we set a time to meet. And so far, this is what we've accomplished. We've had 2 of those 3 committee meetings. In addition to that, I've held 20 individual meetings, either held in person, either with a specific member on the committee, branding committee, or it's been a phone conversation that's been 15, 20 minutes, as well as coaches and extracurricular activity coaches too. So, additionally, at those meetings, I've collected feedback based on some questions I've proposed to these individuals. And lastly, we recently received 3 Danville School family logo concepts that I'm going to share with you today. But before we get to those, I just kind of want to talk about how we arrived to those 3 concepts. So, committee meeting number 1 was held January 30th. The following questions on this slide were presented to the committee. So you can see they were asked about our current logos. How do you feel about the anchor? What sort of characteristics of Danville schools should never be allowed to change, things like that. And based on those questions and many more that were not listed because things come up that weren't on the agenda as they should have, this is what the committee had to say during that first meeting. Initially, they really wanted to have Danville schools versus Danville independent schools. One of the first frustrations that the committee shared with me was that they were very frustrated that we called ourselves two different things all over the place, and they never knew what to call ourselves. So we talked a little bit about that, and at that meeting, we had decided to go with Danville schools rather than Danville independent schools. It was shorter, they liked it. One of the things that they said should never be allowed to change is the anchor. The anchor has to stay, it has to be in all logos. That was a big deal. They talked a little bit about what that anchor should look like. You can see they talked about our current logos and some other anchor logos that we've looked at. Had a long discussion about ropes and chains on anchors, points, some really nitty-gritty stuff about what an anchor actually looks like. Things that you probably never want to talk about, but we did. They wanted one of the things that they thought was very important was that they wanted an anchor to be able to stand alone without the words. While they knew that that wouldn't happen overnight, they wanted an anchor that felt custom, that didn't feel like it was something that we got on Microsoft Word and searched anchor and slapped it on a bunch across a thing. So that was important to them. And then we looked at just kind of placement of other logos as far as like where that seal icon is and where text goes. So you can see here they talked about they didn't like they didn't like the Danville schools being broke up with the logo. They liked it either to the top or to the side. They just thought it read better, so that was a preference. They also talked about colors. Blues and grays were very important. They did not want to see any gold in the logos, so that was something that came up. So we had that committee meeting, then we had a second committee meeting. That one was held on 2 different dates because, as you can imagine, with 10 people's schedules, it's hard to get everybody in the same room at one time. So we had one on April the 16th and April the 23rd. We probably had more attend the 16th than the 23rd. It's just the way it worked out. There we talked more about the family as a whole and not just as a district. So you can see some of the questions that were brought up was, is a color scheme alone enough to unify the schools? Everybody having the same colors. Should a mascot or anchor be included in every school logo? Should the elementary or in middle and high, should their logos reflect the grade levels that they teach? Should the anchor vary across logos? Do you want to see a different anchor across them? How many marks or icons should Danville High School have across athletics, across anything that we're doing? Those were some of the things we talked about. To lead this discussion, I tried to give as many visuals as possible because I think sometimes that helps people understand a little bit more. So this is one of a family of logos we looked at. I found this online after many hours of research. This is Princeton Public Schools. They have a district school structure similar to what we have, so I thought this was at least a starting place that we could look at and talk about some of these questions you saw in the last slide. Here we talked about the variation of the marks. I mentioned earlier, do you want that anchor to look different across? Do you want the elementary or intermediate or middle schools to reflect the grade? So I thought this was a good example. As you can see, early childhood education has almost what you would call an adult print and a child print next to it. The high school has more of that collegiate looking P. And they looked at it and they said they liked this for Princeton schools and they liked the concept. They just thought it would be very difficult to do with an anchor, and they felt that the anchor was something that needed to be included in all. So that was kind of their feedback on that. They did like the idea of showing, identifying, having something different on this anchor that identified that the school was different. So they talked a lot about, could we do something that felt naval, like with stars and ranking that would maybe show the level or the school. The next thing that we looked at was logos for the Bulldog, because John W. Bate has a Bulldog versus being an Admiral. And so we talked about what should that Bulldog look like. These were some samples that I wanted to share with them to kind of fill out the committee on how they felt about a Bulldog, what Bulldog they preferred. You'll see we looked at Mississippi State's Bulldog. I pulled in some college sports because I feel like people are pretty familiar with those. And then we pulled in a neighboring school, Bergen, is a Bulldog, so I wanted them to see what's in our backyard so that we make sure if we're creating a Bulldog that we have something that is Danville and doesn't get confused with the neighboring school. I pulled in the Yale Bulldog because I've seen that exact Bulldog across John W. Bate, and I think it was important for the committee to realize that that's trademarked and we can't use it legally. We could be sued. It may be highly unlikely that Yale is going to come after, Danville, Kentucky, but it is a possibility, and we want to make sure that we're, teaching our students to do the right things too. So if we're stealing logos, that doesn't come off very well. So they looked at this. Most of the committee preferred a side profile, but they didn't like how flat it looked. You can see it looks pretty two-dimensional, and they wanted something that felt a little bit more 3D, so they talked about could we slightly turn it, still a side profile, but could there be some depth in the logo. They did like the M in front of Mississippi State Bulldog, but they thought, is it possible to be an anchor? They liked a collar. They liked the idea of adding an anchor to the collar to kind of tie in admirals all across. They don't like the spikes in a collar. They felt like it was a little too aggressive. So that was a pretty unanimous no spikes. They talked about the Butler Bulldog. They liked it, but they wanted it to feel a little bit more clean. Felt like the Mississippi State Bulldog was a little bit cleaner, while Yale was not dimensional enough for them or had enough depth. They still liked the simplicity of it, so that was important to the community. We also looked at just kind of different looking younger school logos. I mentioned earlier we talked about should each school logo reflect their grade, and so these were some that I just kind of pulled to show. Be honest, I don't think these are the best examples of that, but it's really the best I could find out there. They didn't like these. They felt like they came across looking more like a daycare than an actual school, and so they squashed that pretty quickly. The next thing I want to show you is we talked a little bit about athletics. We talked about what colleges do for their athletic programs. So this is kind of what I showed them that University of Kentucky decided to do in 2016. All 22 varsity sports now have consistent colors, lettering, numerals. These are the marks that they use throughout athletics. So I talked a little bit about all of this as I was showing you these logos. What did they say? Additionally, outside of what I just told you, one of our committee members suggested placing Danville in large font across every school logo to help create that one school, four campuses feel, and putting the school names lower. So that was a suggestion. I said one person suggested, but several people on the committee seemed to like that idea, so they wanted to see that. I mentioned earlier that they wanted to see school labels distinguished in logos with the use of stars, so that was added. They did want to see unified font and color through all four school logos. Subtle anchor as part of the Bulldog collar, the side profile. So, based on the feedback that I gathered in these initial meetings, we sent that on to Ryan Lanigan, who is the graphic designer we're working with, and he gave us two mock-ups of a district logo just to kind of fill us out and see what direction do we really want to go. The first anchor that you're seeing is more of your traditional anchor. It's something that we've all traditionally seen when we've looked up an anchor, that curved, trident type of anchor. The four stars there in the middle are to represent not only our 4 schools, but eventually once we build out a tagline and branding pillars, we would like them to stand for 4 things. For example, it could be academics, athletics, arts, diversity, or something along those lines. We just haven't gotten to that point yet. One of the things that will stick out to you is that blue is more of a navy blue. It's different than what we're currently using. The gray is pretty similar to what we're using. It's a little bit lighter. The font has the feet on it, and you'll see it has Danville Schools on there. The second logo that we received, this is actually, so you can see, this is what it would look like on a white background. This is what it would look like with the reverse logo, white logo, on that navy background. So just to kind of show you a variety. Once we build out logos, we'll have like 4 varieties of each logo. This is the second logo we got. This is more modern. This is a lot different than what you've traditionally seen as Danville. It's sharper. I think at first glance it kind of almost has a military metal feel to it. Still have the 4 placements of the stars inside. The gray is the same color. The font is much different from what you saw in the last one. And the blue is more of that cobalt blue that we're already using at the high school level, and I believe Tolliver has it in the new section for that. So. And then this is again what it looks like on a reverse background and what it looks like on a blue background. So, what did the committee say about these 2 logos? 7 out of 10 committee members prefer the angular anchor. Initially, I do want to bring this up, I actually had 6 out of 10. I had one committee member who tends to be more traditionalist, identified as the traditional anchor. He's actually my bait representative. And he sat on it a weekend and came back and said he changed because he liked that better. He said just initially at first he did not. And then he also sought feedback from other colleagues in his building who preferred that anchor to the traditional one. So that's why it says, just want to be clear, it was 6 to 10, now it's 7 to 10. 8 out of 10 committee members prefer the cobalt blue over the navy. So even that one person, that extra person that preferred the traditional one, still liked the cobalt over the navy. 7 out of 10 committee members did not like that placement of the 4 stars. 9, this is where the change comes in. After we talked about names and the schools being Edna L. Tolliver and Mary G. Hogsett, John W. they felt that Danville Schools was almost too casual and the names were too formal. And then when we started doing some research and realizing that the Kentucky Department of Education refers to us legally as Danville Independent Schools, the committee decided that they now wanted to do Danville Independent Schools and not Danville Schools. That was a 9 out of 10. So we had one committee holdout that felt strong about Danville Schools. So that's why you'll see, we asked in that angular logo to see that. 10 out of 10 committee members liked the gray a lot. I had one committee member who, in his process of surveying colleagues, he came across someone who was colorblind and had a hard time reading that gray on a white background. So he wanted to express some concerns over that, and that was an edit that we requested in our second round, so I'm going to show you. And then 3 out of 10 committee members expressed some concern with changing athletic logos. So with that said, let's talk about athletics. After that was expressed, we had three committee members who either were involved in athletics, one which was our athletic director at the high school, very concerned about some of our sports teams have done a very good job of building a logo and putting that across multiple things. And the concern was they didn't want to bulldoze over the progress that they had made. So based on their concerns, I met with several coaches, not all. I met with probably 6 to 7 coaches. Either they were athletic or they coached something that was extracurricular. Most of them had logos that they were already using. And I talked with our athletic director for the district and with our assistant our high school athletic director, and the decision was made to do a phase 2. So phase 1, we're talking about school logos. Phase 2, we're gonna look harder at our athletic logos. Now what that means is we will still use the anchor across athletics, but as you see, we've got, and this is just a handful of some of the logos we have created in the athletics teams and what they're using, but we will pull together a group of coaches to work directly with our graphic designer on updating those logos and bringing those to standards. So whether that's replacing that logo with the anchor we choose, or it's bringing that blue to the appropriate cobalt Pantone color. I'm going to use the soccer shield as an example. They have an anchor down there in the middle that would be updated. That blue would be updated, that Danville font would. So they will have a say, and they will work closely with those decisions around those logos. So everyone will be brought into standards, but we're going to work around with what they're currently using to bring those into standards. And that was kind of the compromise that we made. The other thing is that ads logo. The committee really likes that ads logo. It's funny, as we were holding our meeting, there were 2 of our students in there who were wearing the ads logo, and I think Chris might have been too. And they've done a great job of putting ads and then putting cross country or different things. So that's another thing that we'll use, but in that phase 2, we'll look at revising so that it matches our standards. Right now, the font as it is on that ads logo, I think it goes really well with that angular logo. Not so much with the traditional one, so I think if that was the direction the committee had wanted to go, we would have had to look at more revisions to that. But I think it's really minimal revisions to that ads, and we want to make it to where any sports team can use it, has access to whatever they need underneath of it. So, talked about all of the edits that everyone had. This is kind of where it gets a little bit fuzzy because we have 3 concepts. Some of them are pretty close together. So this is the first concept we received. Because some community members felt that they loved the angular anchor, but they felt like it might be a little too sharp or harsh, they wanted to see it thinned up. So you can see it's a little bit thinner. It almost looks a little bit longer because of its thinness. And they wanted to see those stars placed differently. We talked about placing it inside that crossbar up there at the top. The issue with that was once you reduced it down, you wouldn't be able to see it. It'd be really hard to put on different things. So that's why the placement went around to the side. I don't know if you guys can tell on the screen, but the gray is darker. It's not super dark. It still has that gray look to it, but if we go any darker, it's going to be black. So we will want to do a test on that color again on a white background. So again, what it would look like on a white, what it would look like on a blue. So now we're also going to take a look at what this first concept would look like at a school level. So this is one of the things that committee wanted to see as far as uniformity was the anchor marked all the way across, and the only thing changed would be the school name. So you can see it's same anchor, 4 stars, and the only thing that changes is the gray text underneath, which is you can see, so that would be the high school, intermediate, middle, and primary. And please note here on Danville, on the John W. Bay, our bulldog is not ready yet. So nobody freak out. We're not putting an anchor there. It is going to be a bulldog. It's just he's only developed 1 and he wants to give us 2 at a time before we have something to compare to. So that's strictly a placeholder. We would have to see how that would fit into that concept. And you'll see that through all of these, just so everybody knows we haven't made a bulldog yet. This is what it looks like on white, on blue. A white logo on blue. And then this is concept 2. So you still have the same look on that district logo with the 4 stars at the top. But this is where the committee wanted to try to identify that those stars represent a school. So you can see there's 1 star in each, but it moves around. I'll tell you, our committee didn't like this. They felt a little unbalanced. And they thought while it could work with years of repetition, it's not gonna come across right away. So, they did not like this one. This was I've only heard back from 7. I'm still waiting on 3 responses, but 7 out of 10 did not like this. And that's what it would look like on blue. This is concept number 3, which is not what the committee asked for as far as colors, but our graphic designer kind of wanted to show us, since that, because he also felt that the solitary star didn't really come across as we were wanting it to, so he wanted to show us how this could be implemented in a different route. So this is what it would look like. The 4 stars would be different colors that would represent a school's color. So that kind of debunks the whole one school, one color approach we had. So just be mindful of that. This is what it would look like on blue. That's what it would look like on white. Again, we don't have a bulldog yet, but this was the concept. Same logo across, but the color of the anchor and the Danville changes to the school's color. This is what it looks like for the reverse logo on the background. So I don't want to give you too much of what the committee's feedback was, because what I'm asking from the board is to take a look at these 3 concepts. I've sent our committee a survey and asked specific questions to kind of feel where we go next after this, because the hope is we want to collect enough feedback from these 3 concepts, create our next piece, and hopefully that will be our final last piece that we would present to you on June 11th for approval. But before we move any farther, we want input from the board, feedback, as well as some building principles. So I would like to send you all a link to the same survey that our committee filled out. As I mentioned, so far only 7 out of the 10 have filled out, so I'm still waiting on 3. They're a little all over the place with the color thing, which was kind of surprising because of what they said in the beginning. So I don't have good solid numbers to tell you whether anyone's leaning this way or that way. And I don't want to taint your feedback. So I would like, I'll send this survey to you all tomorrow. If you guys can take some time to look at it, provide your feedback. My goal is to share that feedback from you all to the committee. I've sent out an email today asking for some dates that the committee and I could meet. So we would keep it anonymous, but let them know that this is kind of what the board felt about the 3 concepts. After we review their feedback and your feedback, we would then move forward in a direction of one of these 3 concepts with whatever tweaks we need to make it what we want it to be. And then, as I mentioned, the goal would be to have a new family to present on June 11th to seek approval. Do you all have any questions?
That's amazing amount of work. Thank you.
It's
Very thorough, and I know how hard it is to get approved to go.
It is, but they have been awesome. Larry sent out a survey to his colleagues at John W. Bay. Renee has done a great job over at Jimmy Rogers. Our 2 students on the committee just amazing. Like, their responses have been so thoughtful and well thought out. And Chris and Clay Albright have done a great job of providing some balance and feedback from athletics. So I feel like we could have asked for a better committee.
We're gonna look so professional.
I hope.
Sounds great.
That's good, thank you.
Thanks, Cal.
Right, moving on. Next is the National Board Certification and Dual Credit Teacher Support Program.
So what we have for you guys is the reiteration of what we talked about at the work session. Ideally, we'd love to see this as part of our salary schedule to support teachers pursue national board certification and dual credit eligibility. If you have questions, Wes would be happy to answer, so would I.
I don't think I have any.
No.
We talked about it quite a bit at the work session.
I think it's just something we need to do.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I agree. I thank you all for the hard work to put this forward, and teachers and advance their education, and continue to support them.
It's an investment, and I want to say that both in our staff, but also in our students. So that's something that this board will be a positive influence that the decision, if you choose to make it, will be.
Wes, I want to ask you, was there anything about what you put together that you didn't like? I mean, is there anything more that you would have said we could do more? Just.
I don't think so, because we looked at, of course, different pots of money. You remember seeing that from last week, that probably over a period of 3 years, with it ending up possibly some general fund money that'll be in the future. We feel it's a lot of money. We feel it's enough to both meet the MBCT needs and also possible dual credit needs. If anything, we may have to possibly look at in a few years putting some more money on the dual credit side. If we have some high school teachers to say, yes, I want to take advantage of that, which obviously will possibly affect our students taking more dual credit classes, that could be a positive unintended consequence. That's only a good thing. That's one thing I really foresee right now. Dr. Luke may feel or have a thought on that as well. But other than that, I think that because Ms. Farmer has looked at that from the national board side and has even ran it by the people in D.C., the national board people. She was in D.C. last week and had contacted me from there, and she was run it by the national director. And they were very excited about that. And that Danville is at the forefront in Kentucky in passing this policy, in proposing this policy, if you choose to pass it.
That's great.
Well, I make a motion for the approval to amend the salary schedule beginning to the 2018-2019 school year to reflect the financial support for teachers pursuing national board certification and/or dual credit credentials.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you for your.
Thank you all.
Next, we have the consent agenda. All these were discussed during the work session regarding medical leave of absence and state troops and use of facilities. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we approve all consent agenda as presented without discussion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is the personnel notifications.
This is simply a notification related to the positions that you approved earlier this evening. Answer any questions?
Any questions? Let's see, next on our agenda is reserved for the public. Some speakers. Okay, these will be called in order, and just a reminder that presentations are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. First on the list is Mike Harris. Okay, if Mr. Harris comes, then we'll go back. Next on the list is Diana Devine. And Lori will be keeping time. So
Okay.
yeah.
Do you want to switch if you like?
Sure, whichever you prefer.
Mike, I'm gonna be keeping time and just to warn you, my kids set the ending thing, so I don't
That's
know.
fine. I've been told I had 27 minutes, so that'll work.
You've got 3.
Happy 30 minutes.
Good evening, my name is Mike Paris. I'm a proud graduate of the Danville Independent School District in 1976, starting at Jenny Rogers Bait and completing here at Danville High School. And although for the last 27 years I've lived in the county school district, I chose to have all 3 of my daughters come to the Danville Independent School. I've also had the privilege of being the first past president of the Danville Schools Educational Foundation, starting in 2007 under the vision of Superintendent Bob Rowland. While at Danville, I received 3 marvelous educations. 1, book education, most of which has long been gone. 2, music education, which I still enjoy today. And 3, people education. And this is the education that served me the most and has been the most enjoyable because it taught me how to look at others, how to live through others' experiences, how to see others' perspectives through their lenses. As you know, I'm the current mayor of Danville. I'm an elected official. You are an elected official. We both serve all people equally. We at the city cannot and should not serve our citizens based on any other criteria other than they are simply tax-paying citizens. We serve all. In other words, all means all, period. Danville is an open community, not a gated one. We do not serve only a select few. Danville Independent School District is an open district, not a gated one. It is not a private school. Like you at the city, we have to balance our resources, and like you, we have a set amount of money to work with. And if we at the city choose to spend extra funds in one area, it will most likely come at the expense of another area. So when I'm told that there will be increased emphasis on AP teachers and students and testing, I ask myself, at what expense or at whose expense does this occur? Some of my most successful friends today were nowhere near what we would quantify as upper academics. In fact, they were goof-offs. It just wasn't their time. But they were smart. And they found what they are good at. And they're damn successful at it. As mayor, I can tell you this. If you want credibility as elected officials, you've got to have transparency. And you all elected to not renew the superintendent's contract back on February the 19th. And you did so, in my estimation, with no transparency, except that now, with the review of past communication, transparency does exist. And it shows a plan of collusion on the part of 3 board members. And they also showed their hands by coming to that meeting with written prepared statements. So the open process of transparency at that time did not occur. You all are better than this. Danville Schools is better than this. In my humble opinion, you have 3 things going forward that you owe. You owe communications to the entire public. You owe it to your fellow board members. And maybe most importantly, you owe it to yourselves.
Thank you, Mayor.
Because you're better than the previous actions show.
Thank you. Next is Diana Devine.
Thank you. Last month, the concerned citizens of the Danville Independent School District presented some information. Well, tonight I'd like to give a conclusion to that information. In an effort to be transparent, I've brought some documents that I'll pass out at the end for the present board members. So when you connect all the dots, you truly get the picture. Based upon many factors, it is the prevailing opinion of the concerned citizens of the Danville Independent School District that the 3-member majority of the Danville Board effectively fired the superintendent, Keith Look, operated in a collusive and self-serving manner in carrying out their functions, and they have done so through the direction and influence of former board chair Lonnie Harper. They did this also with a group of shadow board members. Their goals are their own and do not reflect the will of the broader school community, including parents, citizens, and the staff. The assertion by Lonnie Harp that the community supports the ousting of the superintendent has been conclusively disproven by the sustained response opposing the board's actions. The only explanations are that Mr. Harp is either hopelessly out of touch with the Danville Schools community, or he has intentionally misrepresented the community's wishes in pursuit of his own personal agenda. In either case, the 3 board members are willing accomplices, even if it is unintentional. These 3 board members are hijacking the future of the students in the Danville schools in order to serve their own interests, which they have yet to reveal. Instead of using their role as board members to serve the entire community, just as that law says, all means all, they view the Danville Independent School District as their personal estate to be managed at their discretion and without question from its school communities or taxpayers who live here. Their lack of transparency and accountability, along with the elitism that pervades their actions, are an affront to the entire community. So what position do the concerned citizens of the Danville Independent School District, what do we hold? It is our position that there have been inaccurate, misleading, and blatantly false narratives brought forth by those who dislike, distrust, and are disrespectful of our superintendent, Dr. Keith Look. This is a man who, by his own accomplishments and leadership, deserves none of this, and certainly not the lack of support from the Board of Education's majority who voted to create a vacancy. Further, we believe it is incumbent upon the entire board to correct an unconscionable wrong by rescinding its February 19th this year decision and grant Dr. Look a new 4-year contract. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Marty Smith.
Hello, my name is Maurice Bell. I had a few words to say, but since they gave the resume, I guess I give mine too. Currently, I serve on the site-based council for the high school. I'm the basketball booster club president. I served as PTO president for 2 years at Hogsett Elementary School. I have 2 sons that attend, one attends Danville High School, one attends Bake Middle. And I also volunteered middle school football coach and youth football coach for over 9 years. So I've got a lot at stake in this school. But for one thing, I just wanted to present a petition signed by the undersigned people who support the board and believe it is time to move on for the superintendent selection. I'll read the petition. It's very short and simple. I'm not here to debate or whatever. We have 126 signatures. And it says, we the undersigned value and support the Danville Board of Education. The board has voted and it is time for us to move forward and ensure the success of our Danville school. I think it's time that we need to move on. And I want to present this. I want to request that this be put in the minutes, and anyone who wants a copy can ask the board for a copy, but we have 126 names and we have some people here, but we just want to support the board's decision. It was a decision they made. We thank you all for all the hard work that you do for us, but you know, there's been, with the recent things that's been going on, there's always one-sided, so I'm not here to debate. We just wanted to present that there are a number of people in the community that agree with your decision and are here to support you. So I just wanted to present this here.
Thank you. Next, we have DeMarco Pruitt.
Oh, no, he's.
Oh, okay.
That was for, yeah.
Okay. All right, and that is all that we have as far as time to speak. Next on the agenda is to adjourn.
I make a motion for the approval to adjourn the meeting.
All those in favor?